Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Cook Inlet Tug and Barge, a marine transportation company specializing in harbor services focusing on the Port of Anchorage and the major commercial participants in the Cook Inlet region, providing customers with marine services specifically tailored to their needs.
The National Weather Service.
Hello and welcome to the Saturday edition of Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Kimberley Hoeppner. Today is April 18th, 2015, and you can always get our information via the internet by going to www.arh.noaa.gov or simply type weather.gov and navigate to the destination of your choice on the map. You can always get our information also off the phone information line at 1-800-472-0391, and our internet data for the social media page. You can click on our page at the top banner and you can navigate to the weather.gov Alaska, then go to Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter via the social network on our webpage. Now, looking at the highlights for the rest of the weekend, we have the storm system. If you don't think it's affecting you, it's certainly bringing gusty winds, snow, and rain across the area, and also warmer temperatures. So it's affecting all of the state right now. The gustiest winds are currently across the Bering and also the Alaska Range. So the highest rainfall totals have been noticed across the Gulf coastal areas, with the highest amounts across the northeastern Gulf near Yakutat. Rain totals there have been between 1 to 3 inches over the last 2 days. Now, the warming is also going to occur across the northeastern areas of the state heading into Monday. So if you're up there in the northeastern areas of the North Slope and also across the eastern Beaufort Seacoast, you can notice some differences as we head into the beginning of the next work week. So for this evening, we do have some wind advisories across the Alaska Range. Our advisories here are highlighted in yellow, and these are running now until the early hours Monday morning. So looking for gusts between 50 to 65 miles per hour, with the highest gusts as you head east across the Alaska Range. Now in red, we have 2 blizzard warnings out, one for the Kuskokwim Delta here, and that is going to be running until 10 p.m. this evening for the blowing snow, reducing visibilities down to 1/4 mile or less at times, mainly along the coast here north of Kipnik. And then we also have the blizzard warning across the Bering Strait coastal areas and out towards St. Lawrence Island. This is going to be running through at least Sunday morning at 6 a.m. Now on to the satellite data. Taking a look out over the Bering, we have a large area of clouds just streaming down across the Aleutian chain and over near the Unalaska area into the Alaska Peninsula. Low pressure is spinning with a center just to the south of the Alaska Peninsula currently, and then it's moving north over the Alaska Peninsula into this evening. So this is the system to keep an eye on as it rotates clockwise around it. The colder air is starting to entrain in the south side of this low pressure system. Out ahead of this system across the Gulf of Alaska, very warm temperatures have streamed up along the jet stream. Warm front pushing inland overnight has brought temperatures up into the 50s across the interior areas of the state and south central, and we have a trough just sitting across the northern areas of the Gulf, which continues to bring some light precip there into the southeastern areas of the state. Some breaks ahead of this cold front that's moving up, and we'll just get to the surface maps in just a moment. So watching this low pressure system, this is going to be the weather this is going to be the main weather to focus on as we head into the beginning of next week. This is helping to bring that moisture and the warmer temperatures. As you can see, southerly flow is very strong ahead of this system, with strong northerly flow on the backside of this system. Now, taking a look at the surface map, the low is currently around 976 millibars, pushing the cold front just south of Kodiak Island here. A very tight gradient noted across the Gulf of Alaska, with light rain showers streaming on up along a weak trough here across the coastal areas. So we have gusty winds all across the Gulf Coast and across the channel terrain, and along the Portage Valley, they've seen gusts up to 65 miles per hour overnight and through today. Now across the Alaska Range, just now starting to pick up as a warm front is moving up to the Brooks Range along the northern coastal areas, where they've seen some light snow along the northeastern areas, mainly just blowing snow. Any snow accumulations are pretty much around the Seward Peninsula and on south towards the Pribilof Islands, where we have a very steep pressure gradient, rain just ahead of this warm front across the south central areas and mainly across Bristol Bay and the Kuskokwim Valley, seeing quite a bit of precip during the day today, changing over to snow as you get closer to the western coastal areas on up to the Seward Peninsula. Reduced visibilities with the blowing snow out across all the way through the Aleutians, where it's just slightly warmer. They've seen a mix of rain and snow this morning and now changing over to mainly snow as this colder air starts creeping in along the south side of this low pressure system. Now as we head into the overnight hours, not much change other than this low pressure beginning to fill slightly and moving a little bit further north into the eastern areas of the Bering. So we're going to see this low pressure system begin to build deepen across the northern areas near St. Lawrence Island, hence the blowing snow should be watched across the eastern areas of the Bering. A very tight temperature gradient will keep the precipitation, all snow across the Bering, with a mix of rain and snow as temperatures get a little bit cooler overnight, especially across the higher elevations. We'll see a mix of rain and snow with reduced visibilities in areas where they're experiencing weather. This cold front here is not going to make much progression as the low pressure system just kind of lifts to the north, and this becomes a little bit further to the east. Mainly, we have this trough that's going to be the initiation for the overnight hours, with mainly rain across the southeast and snow along the higher elevations, and a mix of rain and snow as it's warmer currently across much of south central, but temperatures will try to creep near the 35 degree range, and we'll then see a mix of rain and snow across much of these areas. So as we head into to the day on Sunday, we'll see a little bit of a breaking up across the western areas of the Gulf. However, during the morning hours, we'll see the best chance for precipitation across the south areas of the state, with light rain persisting through much of the day on Sunday as a weak trough stays in this area. Strong winds will continue across much of the western Gulf areas, the channel terrain. So we'll see gusts between 40 to 65 miles per hour through the Portage Valley, Turnagain Arm, gusting through the day on Sunday. And then across the Alaska Range, that will continue as well, between 50 and 65 miles per hour. Mixed precip across most of the southwest will warm up during the day and once again become rain during the afternoon. We'll see snow moving up to the northwestern coast, just north of the Kotzebue Sound here, with reduced visibilities and blowing snow continuing also across the eastern Beaufort Seacoast. However, this warm front may surge a little bit further north, so keep an eye on this, but we'll still currently see the blowing snow at least until the middle of the day on Sunday. Now across the backside of this low pressure system, moisture will continue to advect around it, and we'll see a very showery, snow showery pattern continue across all of the Bering. Trough just swinging on the backside of this will be another area of initiation, so possibly up to 1 to 2 inches accumulated in the Aleutian area, the Aleutian chain. Now the Alaska Peninsula, there will be a line across this area where it switches from snow to rain, heading into your Monday forecast, with the cold air staying entrenched on the south side of this low pressure system, and then beginning to evect a little bit slowly into the western areas of the state, still keeping a mix of rain and snow in the forecast along this cold front that'll be situated right around Kodiak Island. And then across the rest of the state, still warmer temperatures across the central areas, and warmer temperatures are going to be surging up towards that eastern Beaufort seacoast. So the Dalton Highway may become problematic near the river where they've experienced the flooding over the last week. So keep an eye out for that. And light rain will continue across the southeast, however, looks to improve as we head into Monday. Temperatures across the state very warm. Look at these temperatures in the mid 40s to mid 50s across the south and central interior, while the northern areas much colder from Barrow to Point Lay, highs reaching between 7 and 10 degrees there. Across the western areas of the state in the mid 20s, and across the Alaska Peninsula looking at the mid 40s and into the mid 30s and lower 30s across the Aleutian chain. Now tonight's temperature is going to remain very warm across the south area with temperatures in the mid 30s to the upper 30s. Southeast will see overnight lows in the 40s, and across the northern areas of the state may stay quite similar to what they experienced during the day today, with just a slight drop in the single digits overnight. In the 20s to 30s across much of the southwestern areas of the state, very warm, with the coldest temperatures in the teens up into the upper 20s across the western areas of the Bering. Then tomorrow, high temperatures again significant across the central areas and the south areas of the state into the mid 40s and 50s, with the warmest temperatures getting in the Fairbanks and the Valley area across the central areas of the state. Coldest temperatures reaching into the lower 20s. Look at that in the northeastern Beaufort Sea tomorrow, so getting very close to freezing. So the flying weather across the state tomorrow, mostly MVFR around the low pressure system, brief areas of MVFR and IFR conditions, with the troughing staying across the eastern areas of the Gulf of Alaska, and then we'll possibly some breaks to MVFR conditions during the afternoon. Anahtuvik Pass will be MVFR and go to VFR in the afternoon. Adigan will be MVFR to VFR as well. And looking at Lake Clark and Merrill Pass, it'll start as IFR, possibly improving to MVFR, and Rainy will be IFR as well. And then looking at Windy, IFR will go to MVFR during the afternoon, and Isabel will also be on the MVFR side, but however, they should improve to VFR in the afternoon. Mentasta will go MVFR to VFR, and Tanita will also be an IFR condition improving to MVFR. Through the day tomorrow for Portage, IFR, Chilkoot, and White Pass expects mainly MVFR conditions. Freezing levels are hugging the Aleutian Chain Alaska Peninsula, surging up into the Brooks Range area and back down towards the southeast, with the levels reaching between 2,000 to 4,000 feet across the mainland, and the warmest temperature 6,000 to 8,000 feet across the Gulf. And mainly the surface freezing level is hugging the southern areas of the Aleutian Chain. The icing tomorrow, you should watch across the western areas of the state, below 5,000 to the north, and between 2,000 to 6,000 across the Gulf and the coastal areas, and just inland across south central, and below 12,000 across the southeast. Looking at your jet stream for tomorrow, a very amplified pattern across the state with a zonal jet stream staying below. So expect that pattern to stay in motion with low pressure across the eastern areas of the Bering. We'll see the strongest winds ahead out of the south between 50 and 65 knots, on the backside around 55 knots. So same setup at the surface tomorrow, southerly flow between 25 and 50 knots across the low pressure, with a change of direction and very strong southerly flow across the Gulf once again. Looking at your turbulence, summing this all up, we're going to have the strongest turbulence around the low pressure system, so watch out for occasional to moderate conditions across the western areas of the state, mainly below 5,000 and 4,000 feet as you head towards the west, and below 6,000 across the southeast. In just a moment, we'll be back with your marine forecast.
The beach on the southeast side of Montague Island stretches for nearly 80 miles of pristine wilderness. At least it looks pristine from a few thousand feet up. As our helicopter descends towards the shore, big chunks of white styrofoam come into view.
You see all the big globs of styrofoam? That's all tsunami debris. Yeah, there's There's more styrofoam out here. There's no question.
Chris Pallister would know. He's president of the nonprofit Gulf of Alaska Keeper. The group has been cleaning up marine debris that washes onto Alaska's shores for 11 years. And when the tsunami debris began arriving last spring, their job got a whole lot harder. Pallister has visited Montague Island nearly a dozen times since then. And by the time we land and step onto the pebble beach, he's shaking his head in disgust.
I mean, you're basically standing in a landfill out here.
Pallister points to an area scattered with styrofoam bits smaller than packing peanuts.
So you see what's happening here with all the crushed up styrofoam now? This is what we're worried about. This styrofoam's just going to get all ground up. And you can see there's just the billions, trillions of little bits of styrofoam scattered all over everything.
The smaller it gets, the more concerning it is.
The smaller it gets, little pieces like this, it's virtually impossible to clean it up. I mean, to clean this up right here, you have to take out all this organic matter with it. And, you know, extrapolate that all up and down this coastline. It's kind of an impossible job.
The trash is not just an eyesore. Pallister says voles, birds, and even bears are eating the styrofoam and plastic. He's also worried about chemicals. Among the debris, he finds containers that held kerosene, gas, and other petroleum products. Even the little containers worry him. Sifting through the trash, he picks up a small blue bottle and unscrews the cap to inspect its contents.
I have no idea what this was. It looks like just dish soap, maybe, laundry detergent, but it's empty, which is maybe not a good sign. But there's thousands of bottles like this all up and down the coast, from small household chemical items to drums full of chemicals, big industrial-sized drums.
Marine debris is not a new issue in Alaska, but the Japanese tsunami has magnified the problem many times over. Pallister says the tsunami debris doesn't have the visceral impact of the Exxon Valdez spill, with oiled animals and blackened coastlines, but he thinks in the long run it could be a bigger environmental disaster.
In a lot of ways, it's a lot worse than the oil spill, both in the geographic scope of it and the chemicals that are coming with it. And who knows what the impacts are going to be. And they're going to be really difficult to measure because they're spread out spatially. And, you know, it's going to be a very difficult scientific issue to sort that all out, I think.
Officially, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration has only recorded 20 tsunami debris items that have landed in Alaska, but the agency will only confirm an object if it has a unique identifier that can be traced back to Japan. The state of Alaska does not use the same strict standard. Last summer, the state paid for an aerial survey to inspect 2,500 miles of Alaska's coastline. Elaine Bussey-Floyd is acting director of the Division of Environmental Health. She says the survey identified tsunami debris all along the flight path from southern southeast up to Prince William Sound and out the Alaska Peninsula.
There was tsunami debris literally on every beach that was photographed. They took over 8,000 pictures, and it was more widespread and greater quantities than we even expected.
But so far, there has been minimal funding for cleaning up the debris. Governor Sean Parnell didn't include any tsunami debris funding in his budget. NOAA is figuring out how to distribute a $5 million gift from Japan, and Alaska's congressional delegation is working to get federal funds. But tsunami debris cleanup money was stripped from a bill for Hurricane Sandy relief that passed this week.
Look at this mess here.
Back on the beach, as the waves crash in, Chris Pallister says the debris could have serious impacts on fisheries and subsistence resources.
I don't know if it's being taken seriously enough. I don't think a lot of people that are going to be impacted by it know how bad it is right now. And until that gets out, maybe not much is going to happen. But I think we're kind of getting to the tipping point now where a lot of people in the state and federal agencies realize the gravity of this situation, and they're all working pretty hard now to get a handle on the scope of the problem and trying to develop funding sources. But as of yet, that hasn't happened. But it's a huge problem. It's going to take years to clean this mess up.
Pallister guesses it will take tens or even hundreds of millions of dollars to remove the debris. On this day, though, he has to leave it all on the island.
All right, we better go back.
Okay. We take off in the helicopter and head north along the beach. Pallister looks out the window at all the debris below and says it just goes on and on and on. On Montague Island, I'm Annie Feit. It's a brilliantly sunny day in early March, and Pallister's visiting Montague to get a handle on how much new debris washed up on the island over the winter. He also needs to check on debris his crew collected into heavy-duty bags called super sacks last summer. Pallister wants to make sure they held up over the punishing winter months. Pallister measures debris not by the pound, but by the ton. And on outer Montague Island, he estimates there's 20 to 30 tons of debris per mile. He guesses about half of it is from the tsunami and half is the usual marine trash that's been washing up in increasing amounts for decades. Last summer, he used funding from the legislature and other sources to begin cleaning up the first 3 miles of the island's coast.
There's another almost 70 miles to do on this shoreline. And we spent probably close to 60 days cleaning these few miles that we did here. So this is a huge, huge problem. This island is really bad.
The state identified Montague as one of 9 priority areas for tsunami debris cleanup. There are other hotspots from the southern tip of Southeast and as far west as the islands off of Kodiak. Japan gave the United States $5 million for cleaning up debris in all the West Coast states. So far, Alaska has received the biggest chunk of that money, $1 million. Alaska's situation is vast coastline, often inaccessible even to small landing craft, combined with huge quantities of debris. He says it will cost millions more just to clean Montague.
There's actually a lot of new stuff here. People always ask me, why do you do this? Why would you keep doing this if it keeps coming back? And I just tell them that you clean your kitchen counters. This is where we get our sustenance in this state. The intertidal area is where a lot of our fishing resources and all that came from. So I say this is our kitchen counter, and a rational person keeps their kitchen counters clean.
All right, welcome back to the show, and let's take a look at the sea ice edge here out across the Bering. It's nearly the same as where it was in place yesterday. However, with the colder temperatures and the north to northeasterly flow, we might see this grow slightly to the south-southwest direction. Looking at the southeast for your Sunday, we're looking at mainly small crafts across the area out of the south and southeast with winds between 25 and 30 knots across the area with gale warning as you head up towards the Yakutat area. Across the inner channels, expect seas between 4 to 5 feet, and across the outer waters between 13 to 17 feet. Looking at your Monday forecast, slightly different winds here as southerly direction across the inner channels would be lighter between 10 and 15 knots. And then out of the west to northwesterly direction, the winds will be changing later in the day on Monday. And then we'll see 15 to 20 knots across the outer waters, 2 to 3 foot seas across the inner channels, and outer waters we'll see between 10 and 12 feet on Monday. Looking at the western areas of the Gulf, very strong winds between 30 to 35 knots out of the south and southeast, gales just around the Kodiak Island. And then across the Prince William Sound, we'll see small crafts there also out of the southeast, 25 knots. And then across the Cook Inlet between 15 to 25 knots as you go towards the southern tip of the Kenai. Stronger winds and changing direction towards Kodiak out of the southeast. And then we'll see seas across the Prince William Sound around 6 feet, and then across the western areas of the Gulf between 16 to 18 feet. The inlet will be between 3 and 6 and 6 to 7 near the Kodiak Island. Looking at your Monday forecast, slightly lighter wind speeds across the area, mainly out of the south, changing to the southwest direction across the western areas of the Gulf. A southeasterly flow across Shelikof Strait, southerly direction up the inlet between 15 to 25 knots as well. And then Whittier or Prince William Sound will see seas around 2 feet with the lighter wind speeds, 12 feet across much of the Gulf waters, 3 to 5 feet across the inlet near Shelikof Strait, up to 6 feet. Looking at your Alaska Peninsula for Sunday, stronger winds here, gales across much of the area out of the north and westerly direction, except out of the southeast across part of the Bristol Bay areas, and we'll see small craft there, 13 to 20-foot seas across here. Be very careful on that Bering side of the Alaska Peninsula, 14 to 18-foot seas across the Pacific side. Looking at your Monday forecast, lighter wind speeds out of the southwest direction with seas 10 to 13, Bering side 11 feet on the Pacific side, and a westerly direction for your Sunday across much of the Aleutians, mainly small craft until you get to the eastern Aleutians with 35 to 40 knots out of the north and northwesterly directions. And then we'll also see higher seas around 15 to 18 feet across the eastern areas of the Aleutians and out towards the west around 10 feet. And then we'll see a change on Monday, slightly slower speeds across the eastern half, small craft there, 25 to 30 knots across the entire Aleutian chain. The seas on this day will be between 8 and 12 feet across the entire chain. Looking at your west coast one more time, we'll see the westerly to northwesterly flow here, and then an easterly flow as you get up towards the St. Lawrence Island. And seas will be between 10 and 14 feet during the day Sunday. Change of direction of winds as we head into Monday out of the south direction, small craft or brisk wind for the area. We'll see seas between 8 to 10 feet, and freezing spray should be watched along the ice edge for both Sunday and Monday along that ice edge. And then we'll see gales on Sunday across much of the northern coastal areas and back towards Kotzebue Sound, slightly slower wind speeds at 30 knots there. And then on Monday, as we head into that day, mainly brisk winds across the area between 25 and 30 knots out of the east with southeasterly winds across the Kotzebue Sound. Wrapping up your weather summary for tonight, we'll see that low pressure lifting over the Alaska Peninsula into the eastern Bering, continuing to bring that mix across the state. Very strong winds across much of the south coastal areas, the southwest, and the blizzard warnings in effect across the Kuskokwim Delta and St. Lawrence Island. Conditions will improve across the interior for tomorrow with low pressure staying in the area through your Monday forecast. So stay tuned and hope to see you back tomorrow night.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.